Hey everybody, it's Longhorn Confidential time. It is the end of July. It is just about football season, and we know that because we had our first media availability of the football season today. It is Tuesday, July 30th. The players will hold their first practice. Players, coaches, Texas, everyone over at Texas will hold their first practice on Wednesday afternoon. Probably should introduce myself. Danny Davis, the Austin American-Statesman. I'm joined by Thomas Jones today. Cedric Golden is currently on vacation, enjoying his last couple days of the summer before he has to get back in the trenches with us. So we're gonna just do a kind of a quick little Longhorn Confidential to get us prepped for the football season. Ask a couple questions, and we'll get on out of here. And we'll be back later in the week to recap the first week of fall camp, which is funny to say about something that begins in July, but
Mhm.
it is what it is. We have our journalism lingo, and we're going to stick to it. But Thomas, we met as a media press corps with the three coordinators over at Texas. Now, Steve Sarkisian does not allow his assistants to talk during the season unless it's mandated by a bowl game. So each August/July in this case. So we get about 20 minutes with PK, Kyle Flood, and Jeff Banks, the offensive, defensive, and special teams coordinator. I swapped the offensive and defensive coordinator titles, but what was one thing you took from the hour we spent with the three coordinators today? Because we're not going to get to speak with them again until bowl season. But what was one thing you took out of today's media sessions?
Yeah, and one thing about football coaches is they're very comfortable being uncomfortable. By nature, they're critics. They're always trying to get better. What I took from these guys today is they are just very comfortable on who they are as a staff. Kyle Flood, the offense coordinator, even used the phrase, let me make sure I get it. He said this is a quote, really enjoyable situation to be in coaching this season. And you just don't hear coaches talk about, they don't use words like enjoyable and fun and this is a pleasure. I mean, these are guys who are jobs is to find areas of concern, weaknesses, and correct them and get better. But I think just how comfortable they are with each other, and Coach Flood saying this is very enjoyable. I mean, it just stood out to me, and it tells you the expectations of where this team is. They got a lot of guys back. They're going to be a top 10 team, probably a top 5 team. Expectations are high, and they're happy about that. What about you? What stood out?
Yeah, there's lots of detailed conversations, especially from PK and Jeff Banks. I'm sure fans, if they want to go onto YouTube channel, Texas always posts those press conferences, can get into. But one thing that really stood out to me from Kyle Flood's discussion with us was probably just how much depth this team has, especially on offense. Now, going into the season, I think fans are rightfully concerned about what's going to happen at wide receiver, what's going to happen at tight end, because they lost all those guys to the NFL. What's going to happen at running back now that Jonathan Brooks isn't here, even though CJ Baxter played plenty last year and Jaden Blue came on strong at the end of the year. But Kyle seems very confident in
Yeah.
how much depth they have. I think he said he had 8 or 9 guys who got meaningful playing time last year, whether on the offensive line, whether it was the 4 who started or back, or guys like Connor Robertson, who was thrown in there in that Oklahoma game, or some other guys who started or played along the way. Even Malik Agbo, who was playing as a tight end at times last year. So they're very confident there. And then he also mentioned they have about 9 guys who are going to be receiving reps, during their first couple of weeks of practice, first or second string reps at the wide receiver position. And that, of course, is a position Jordan Whittington's not here anymore. Xavier Worthy's not here anymore. Adonai Mitchell isn't here anymore. So if Texas fans were concerned about that, which I think they have a right to be, it doesn't seem like the Texas coaches are freaking out about it yet. So the depth and just kind of, I guess, Kyle's confidence in what they have there on the offensive line, on the defensive line. He talked up the running backs as well. They don't seem concerned. Obviously, we know what Quinn Ewers brings at the quarterback position and the stability they have here, and people are obviously very confident in the depth behind him with Arch there, and even Trey Owens with what he did in the spring game. But it just seems overall on the offensive side of the football, they're not as worried as maybe us in the media are, or some Texas fans are, because they have depth, which is not something that over the years, especially on the offensive line, that this Texas team has necessarily boasted. But I don't know if this is your answer, since we're talking about 9 receivers and 8 offensive linemen. I know you wrote recently about position battles to watch during the fall camp, which begins in July. But what is one position battle that you're watching over these next few weeks?
Look, I know the coaches get a little defensive about their pass defense numbers a year ago, but look, you lost your two starting cornerbacks, and Ryan Watts is now in the NFL. Um, Terrence Brooks is gone. He transferred out. You got to find some consistent play at the corner position. And I know the coaches are super happy with Malik Muhammad, but that other spot, I really think there's going to be a battle for, again, coaches that downplay who starts, but that's important. There's going to be a battle for playing time, especially opposite Malik Muhammad. So can Janae Barron, was your star back, you're essentially your nickel back a year ago, can he step out there and play some corner? I know the coach is going to do that this year. Gavin Holmes played it a lot last year. Can he develop a little more consistency? They signed Javion Cole in the portal. He's a nice player at San Jose State. Can he develop into that ball hawk on the other side? That's a position I'm going to be watching at. You talk about the depth at receiver. Test those corners, in these first couple of weeks of practice. Let's see who steps up opposite Muhammad. Let's see who can, really lock down a guy.
I'll be interested to see, and this may not be settled over the first few weeks of camp. This may be well into the season before we figure this out. But what exactly happens at the running back position? Is this a committee of C.J. Baxter, Jaden Blue, Trey Wisner, or does someone kind of emerge? Steve Sarkisian typically has relied on one running back. It looked that way last year with C.J. Baxter and Jonathan Brooks kind of started the season as a 1-2 punch, and Jonathan Brooks kind of took the ball and literally ran with it to the tune of, I think it was a top 20 rushing season at Texas before he got hurt. Does that happen this year? Does Texas look at the running backs they have, those three I just mentioned, and say, hey, we can, mix and match here and kind of just go ride the hot hand or use these guys for different situations? So I'm kind of interested to see what happens there. Is this a committee, or is this one of these guys is going to step up and kind of become the star of this backfield as the Texas heads into SEC play? I mean, it probably will not be settled over these next couple of weeks, at least not during the media sessions we're allowed to watch. But that's definitely something I'm going to be looking forward to seeing before that Mississippi State game at the end of September. I think it's September 20th. With what we do get to see over the next couple of weeks, Texas UG opens up a couple practices for us to kind of see 15-20 minutes of, and maybe we'll get to go see a full practice or a scrimmage at some point. But what is one question you want answered this week? Texas practices on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We'll get to see bits and pieces of all three of those practices. But when we reconvene at the end of the week, what's one question you want to have answered?
I want to see which of these revamped receivers really kind of sees a job. Like you wrote on this statesman.com last week, we know Isaiah Bond is going to be, he's going to be a stud outside, the transfer from Alabama. But Sark has talked about they go 7 deep at receiver now. He's never had this much depth in his time at Texas. Who's going to jump up and get a job? Is it going to be Ryan Wingo, the 5-star freshman? He personally reminds me of Des Bryant. He's got that physical, strong build. Throw up those X's for you Cowboy fans. Matthew Golden, the U of H guy, he's coming in from Houston. He's a nice receiver. I think you fans saw that last year. He's going to have options in the passing game. Jonte Moore is a speedy guy. We saw him a little bit as a true freshman. DeAndre Moore has talent. Who's going to step up? Who's going to be the guy opposite Bond? And this first few days of practice, I think you can even start seeing some of that.
I'm really interested. We'll talk with Steve tomorrow after practice, but I'm really interested to see not only in practice, but on Thursday we'll get to speak with some of the players. Just kind of what is the mindset of this team? What is their attitude? We're used to, as people who cover Texas, hearing Texas say, it's us against the world. Everyone's going after Texas, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact of the matter is, last year Texas was a hunter. They were ranked whatever they were ranked in the preseason. They were not expected to make the college football playoffs. They were underdogs going into Alabama. And as the season went on and progressed, eventually they became kind of the big dog. They became the target. This year, they are the target going into the season. They will be a top 5 team whenever the coaches poll comes out. I think it's Monday, and the AP poll comes out later on. They're ranked number 2 in the SEC preseason poll, even though they're a newcomer to that conference. So it is expected now at Texas. And I'm kind of wondering, are they going to come in with that same, hunger mindset? Are they going to come in saying, they won't be complacent, or are they going to come in off of the high of a college football playoff and kind of expecting that's what it is now? And, we're happy, we're, not necessarily complacent, but kind of expecting and stuff like that. Or are they the hunters? So I'm kind of going to be interested to see kind of what their mindset and what their attitude is. We kind of got a taste of it, at the SEC media days. Quinn was pretty like, the standard's a standard, and we expect to, be competing for national championships. Jade kind of had the same attitude, which you'd expect from a fifth-year senior. So I'm going to be interested to see what the players kind of say when we ask them about their goals, when we ask them about their mindset going into the season, and kind of see what it is at practice, see how the seniors are riding the younger players and how, are they lollygagging out there and just kind of happy to be back? Are they, kind of from the very first snap going 100% and, trying to acting like it's a January practice as opposed to an August practice? So that's what I'll be interested to see. And maybe we won't exactly see that during our windows. And maybe the players will give us some cliche answers during their press conferences, but that interests me a little bit more as opposed to at this time last year, who looks better, Quinn or Arch? We kind of know what we're going to get at that position. So that doesn't interest me as much.
Was it not refreshing? There wasn't a single question in a whole hour of questions with coordinators. Not one thing about Arch Manning.
I
Not
think
one
at this,
question.
I think at this point, I think all the local media kind of gets it with Arch. I don't think there's really
Yeah.
much to ask. Now, if we had some national reporters in there, it may be different, but also, much respect to Kyle Flood. Yeah, I don't think there's much he's going to tell us about Arch. Maybe if there was a 5-star offensive lineman, he could. I mean, he did talk about Brandon Baker. He could give us a little insight about that. But I think at this point, the local media is a little tired of that storyline. I'm sure Steve's tired of answering it, but
Yeah.
and we all kind of know exactly what Steve's going to say. But bring in a couple national reporters or some people who maybe haven't asked that question before, as we saw
Yeah.
in media days, Arch is going to get brought up. But it is what it
You
is.
know,
That's the
to
game.
yeah, to your point, it just seems everyone is comfortable with their role, starting at the quarterback position and going through the whole roster. So it'll be interesting this week.
Yeah, but that's going to do it for us. As we said, we're taping this on Tuesday, July 30th. Practice begins tomorrow and Wednesday. Longhorns will be out there Wednesday and Thursday at 2:30 in the afternoon. So that's going to be nice and toasty.
Wear a hat. Wear
Yeah,
a
I have
hat.
to wear a hat. Maybe not this black shirt. I don't know exactly what I'm going to wear to stay cool, but I'm not going to have it nearly as bad as the players who will actually be running around for a lengthy period in this time. But they got to get ready for that kickoff against Colorado State, which will also be in the afternoon game. So that's why they have these afternoon practices. But we'll be back later in the week to kind of recap what we saw throughout this first week of practice. Statesman.com will have lots of content and reports over there, and it's football season, y'all. That season opener is going to be, the countdown's coming. So we're happy to be back. We're happy that you're watching, happy that you're reading, and we'll see y'all down the road. Deuces.